with the courage of our doctors and nurses, with the skill of our scientists and innovators, with the determination of the American people, and with the grace of God, we will win this war, and we will win this war quickly, with as little death as possible. And when we achieve our victory, this victory, your victory, we will emerge stronger and more united than ever before. We are going to be at a level of preparedness in case something like this should ever happen again, and God willing, it won't.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to take a look at the latest new Q posts, and we have to ask the question, is there a clear and present danger facing this nation that comes not only from the virus, but from, as President Trump has told us, the hidden enemy? And what is the hidden enemy? We're going to take a very deep dive into that. Plus, we're going to look at some theories about what these naval hospital ships may actually be for, and we're going to look at a bunch of other breaking news from across the country and the world that you guys are going to want to stick around and check out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys know the drill. I say thank you if you've hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, then hit the bell for notifications, and then select all so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. Today, we're picking up right where we left off. We left off at Q post 3904. We're picking up at 3905. And these are some big posts because they lay everything out in a very clear way for, I think, a lot of people who are maybe new to this to understand. These are a lot of themes that we've heard from Q in the past, but we're going to cover them and we're just going to jump right into it. And I'm going to read through these. They're very important. So I'm going to read through them and let you guys kind of make your own minds up here. So let's start here at 3905 and I'm going to read through it and then we'll talk about it briefly. It says, a person's value, vote, 1, 2, monetary value, whatever you contribute in taxes, 3, nothing else. That's all they want from you, right? Why is free thought ridiculed, challenged, and threatened when a person is opposed to the mainstream narrative? 2, remains fixed degree allowable by economic recession expansion, right? So your monetary value is flexible based off of the economic recession and expansive. And then 1 remains a variable, and 1 is dependent on a controlled system of information dissemination. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled, owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? Communism? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? You're seeing it right now with the fake news. What happens when the news simply becomes an extension arm of a political party? Fact becomes fiction, fiction becomes fact. When does news become propaganda? Identity creation? How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Majority of people more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name. Do people, human psyche, tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? Mainstream is used for a reason, dominate trend in opinion. If majority of people believe X, then X must be validated. True. Why do mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords and or catchphrases? I wonder. It's hypnotic. It's supposed to be brainwashing, literally. Coordinated by who? Outside entity providing instructions. Do they count on the fact that people, human psyche, are more prone to believe something if heard over and over again by different trusted sources? Remember, that's a famous quote from one of Hitler's henchmen. If you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes true. That's the kind of sick level of twistedness we're hearing. We're going against here with this fake news. So then it goes on and says, do echo chamber tactics provide validation, credibility to the topic point being discussed? Threat to intellectual freedom. Would control over of these institutions, organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoint regarding a desired topic? Read again and digest. Would control over of, now when Q puts the kill box on of, the metaphorical kill box I should say, that I think means they've taken control, or they will be taking control of at some point if these people don't basically get their acts together and start reporting the truth in the news as it should be reported, instead of this pushing of anti-American, pro-Chinese communist propaganda on a regular basis. But it says, would control over of these institutions, organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoint regarding a desired topic? Logical thinking. Why, after the election of 2016, did Democrats and media corporations jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods regarding illegitimacy of election, character assassination of POTUS through sexism, racism, and every other ism? Think about that, though. Just let's pause here for a second. That's exactly what they did. As soon as 2016, the results came in, they were already strategizing on how to undercut President Trump and how to manipulate the masses to hate the president and to hate our country by proxy. So that's what we've come to. They're tearing down statues and they're calling everyone racist and sexist and trying to create this division that didn't exist because they had to divide us, because we were coalescing around a leader who wanted to save this country from these corrupt criminals who ran it into the ground for their own benefit in order to help the Chinese communists so they could just pay off a bunch of corrupt communist officials to help them, organize more power and control over those who are below them. So that's exactly what we're up against here. But it says, why were violent or pre-post 2016 election, why were violent masked terror organizations such as Antifa immediately created, funded? Why were these organizations tasked with immediate intimidation, shutdown of any pro-POTUS rallies and or events? I can tell you why. Because they needed fascist thugs who called themselves anti-fascists in the ultimate form of irony, roaming the streets, beating people over the head with bike locks and baseball bats who disagreed with their political opinion. That's really how you save a democracy, right? You go out in the streets and start beating people over the head. I'm saying that sarcastically. It's completely antithetical to what our government is based off of. And I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what they did. And it only got worse from there. It says, why were marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rallies and or events? Why were marches immediately organized which divided people into sex, gender, race, ism? The Women's March, and then you had all these other marches, and everybody's got their little group, and then a subsect of the group that they're in, and then it becomes tribalism. Then we start warring internally. That's what they wanted. They wanted us in a tribal style warfare within our country, within our borders. And so they separate us by sex, religion, gender, race, etc. That's what we're up against. It says, when you control the levers of news dissemination, you control the narrative. So at what point do we, the people, stand up and look at these people who've been running these mainstream media corporations that have been sowing division, been spreading fake news? They're run by these 6 major corporations who are basically owned and controlled by the same globalist cabal that we've been trying to fight against, who's trying to destroy our sovereignty, trying to implode our country in on itself so that we can be handed over to the Chinese communists and whatever other global faction of tyranny is about to take over. You have to ask yourself these very important questions. When they did all this, are they going to end up having to face any type of accountability for what they did to this country? I'm not sure. Only time will tell. But those who are involved in it right now, let me tell you, there's a way you can help if you're a part of this system and you want to help to basically break it down. Go to Project Veritas. Go to James O'Keefe or whoever. Put your story out there. Expose these people, because that's what this calls for right now. It just might be the one person who's listening to this going, should I or shouldn't I? Yes, you should. It's your duty as a citizen of this country to step forward and to expose these people. Be like Carrie Porch. Be like the other whistleblowers who came forward with Project Veritas and expose these criminals in the media. And you will set yourself apart in history, and you will help this country to heal itself and to move forward in the right direction. That's where I'll leave that. But it says, control of the narrative equals power. When you are blind, what do you see? They want you divided by religion, by sex, by political affiliation, by class. Divided, every one of them, right? When you are divided and angry, of course, and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible. So look here, not here, is basically it. Those darn white supremacists that run this entire country, that 98% of the country is made up of, that in reality don't exist. Those are the people you should be out attacking. Whereas don't go after the corporate hegemony. Don't go after the lying fake news media talking heads. Don't go after the people who have deceived you day after day after day, telling you the president's a Russian agent and our country's a terrible place. Don't look at them. Look at each other and fight with each other. They're sitting up there as little puppet masters controlling what you do, right? That's what Q, I think, is getting at here. It says, divided you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. So you're basically harmless to them once they can get you to fight with each other amongst yourselves. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or stable livestock kept as sheep. That's what I've said before. I said this in the last video. There are people out there who look at you as nothing more than dead on arrival, a sheet of paper and a check every year in taxation that they can collect. That's how sick some of these people are, and that's what you have to remind yourself on a daily basis. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of that stable, the groupthink collective that they've created, and you have free thought. Free thought is this. It's a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic. Well, how about that? Reason and empiricism. Who'd have thought? Rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. Yeah, I'd prefer to think on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism rather than the authority telling me it's traditional that we look at this in a dogmatic way. You know, that's the way I read it. But it says, this in and of itself, everything that you just read here, or we just read here, says this represents a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. Q. So, look, I think what this is getting at is something that we all know. Right? We know that the media is sowing this division. We know that they're doing it with an intent, and that is to have us fight amongst ourselves so that once we are divided in that way, we can be conquered. Our country will implode. Our borders will cave. Our whole country will lose its identity and its power, which we draw our power out of that identity, which is simple. Americans. We are all Americans, no matter what race you are, what religion you are, what gender you are, what political affiliation you are. If we come together as Americans, right, then we can defeat them. And that's what they don't want you thinking. They want you to think that there's this, you're a victim and everything is meant to harm you and you need to fight the power, and they don't name the power. They just point you in the direction of people who may disagree with you politically or may have be of a different gender or sex or of a different class than you. That's what you have to fight against allowing them to do. So that's ultimately what that is. There's a lot here, so I'm going to try to get through these. I hope that all made sense, and a lot of it, is pretty self-explanatory. The next one says, decide for yourself. Be free from outside opinion. Decide for yourself. Be objective in your conclusions. Decide for yourself. Be true in your own beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be open to the facts. Decide for yourself. Be strong in defending your beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be resistant to blindly accepting factless statements. Those who attack you, those who mock you, those who call you, those who control you, those who label you, do they represent you? Or do they represent themselves in some form? Mental enslavement. Now, when I think of this, I just think of the fake news media and how they cast dispersion on Americans. They cast dispersion on this entire country, tell us it's a terrible country, we're terrible people, we're all racist and evil, when it's the opposite. And they know it because they're the ones who are evil, and they're the ones who are racist, and they're the ones who are every ism in the book, right? But they can't have you knowing that. They have to keep you thinking that you're the one who is the evil one. Don't let them do that. It's mental enslavement. Q says here, the Great Awakening, freedom of thought, was designed and created not only as a back channel to the public away from the long-standing mind control of the corrupt and heavily biased media to endure future events through transparency and regeneration of individual thought, breaking the chains of groupthink, but more importantly, aid in the construction of a vehicle, a ship. That's an interesting choice of words. That provides the scattered free thinkers with a starter, new social networking platform which allows for freedom of thought, expression, and patriotism or national pride, the feeling of love, devotion, and sense of attachment to a homeland and alliance with other citizens who share that same sentiment. That's what we are doing here. And think about what a ship is. We'll get into this a little bit later, but the fact that Q threw that in there as a ship, That's what the Vatican's tried to condense all of us down to, is we are just, or have been, a part of this feudal system. Whether you know it or not, you have been mentally enslaved, but we've also been a part of this global feudal system for quite some time. And that's what our previous leaders, administrations, presidents, etc., were selling us out to repeatedly, over and over again. So think about that. That's exactly what we have to remember. Q goes on to say, when non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and or the stable. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, groupthink, collective, and have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma, like we said before. When you are awake, you are able to clearly see. The choice is yours and yours alone. Trust and put faith in yourself. You are not alone, and you are not in the minority. Difficult truths will soon see the light of day. Where we go, one we go all. Q. So again, this is Q explaining to us how we should be free from this mental enslavement, as Q puts it, that the mainstream media, the fake news, these lying big tech corporations and their monopolies over the platforms that we share for social networking, we have to be free from that, and we will break free from it. And that's a part of what the Great Awakening is. And right now you're seeing the movement that Q has been telling us is coming is here, okay? There's a reason why President Trump has mobilized 1 million, or called up 1 million soldiers, troops to active duty. There's a reason why the entire nation's on lockdown. And yes, it is a virus. And yes, it is from China. And yes, we have a lot of evidence that seems to say it's very possible that this virus is or has been weaponized. Now, one thing I want to point out too is that for those of you out there who don't even, think for 1 million years or in 1 million years that there would be a virus and a weapon like this, fine. But the Chinese made this a bioweapon by their actions, okay? By allowing it to spread and then threatening to cut off our supply of prescription pills. That in and of itself weaponizes this virus, making it thereby a bioweapon. Even if you don't believe the idea that it's what Q has told us before, it's probably from a level 4 facility in Wuhan that released this as a form of warfare in the middle of a trade war that strategically helped in a lot of different ways. It made people get locked in their houses. It gave an excuse for the authoritarian Chinese to ramp up their authoritarianism by, basically shutting down entire cities. Excuse me. Where you're seeing the protests. Hong Kong had to be quarantined, and a lot of different places where you're seeing uprisings, there are major quarantines happening. And so that aside, remember, you are able to freely think for yourself. And if you can put 2 and 2 together and use logical thinking and use your own free thought to put together logic, reason, and base it on empiricism, that is really all that this is about. I mean, ultimately. So the next one here says, the entire world is watching. Patriots from around the world are praying for America. We're all bound by a feeling deep inside, a feeling that cannot be publicly expressed for fear of ridicule, a feeling that challenges the mainstream narrative against that which we are told to accept and dare not question. Put simply, that people are being abused by those in power and time is running out. Remember the battles of Lexington and Concord. Quote, give me liberty or give me death. Now, I have to stop right there because that is where we're at in our society. We will make decisions that will affect generations to come from here. And whether we want to sell ourselves out and allow these authoritarian global fascists to take over, or if we stand for freedom and continue to be a shining example of how we are set apart. We are an exceptional society of exceptional people who do exceptional things. That's for us to decide. And that's for you and me and all of us in this together, whether you're here in the United States or around the world. We're going to stand up for liberty, or we're going to have to face certain death. That's really all there is to it, right? For far too long, we have been silent and allowed our bands of strength that we once formed to defend freedom and liberty to deteriorate. I mean, it's like atrophy. If you don't use your muscles, if you don't use your freedom, it goes away. Somebody will come and take it. It says we became divided. We became weak. We elected traitors to govern us. We allowed evil to prey on us. Those who claimed to represent us gave us false hope. made false promises. The evil and corruption only grew. This is more than party politics. This is about restoring old glory. This is about saving our land and our people from those who wish us harm. This is about preserving our republic. This is about preserving our safety. This is about restoring our strength. This is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is about protecting our children. This is about saving America. We are all God's children. We are fathers. We are mothers. We are daughters. We are sons. We are brothers. We are sisters. We do not look at race. We do not look at skin color. We are united in these states of America. We are and will be always patriots. We must rise again. We must unite again. We must fight again for God and country. God bless America. Where we go one, we go all. Q. And then finally, the stars and stripes here. Old glory, the American flag without the gold fringe. And to me, that's representative of something in and of itself. But there you go, guys. That's the entire latest set of Q posts, and it's inspirational, it's uplifting, and I think that it speaks for itself. So I hope that those words helped you and understand what we're up against and understand there's a battle at hand. A few interesting things I want to cover before we get out of here, a few stories. First of all, I thought this was hilarious to the anon who found this. Good job, but misprision. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. It's meaning to cover up, but the funniest thing I've seen yet, and the truest thing that I've seen yet, is if we recall back here, the last Q post where Q goes through these different list of items that people are going to be facing charges for, I think, who betrayed our country. The second one here is misprision of treason, meaning covering up or hiding treason. Now, what the anon picked up here was the Google Trends for the last 7 days, and the top search was coming from, you guessed it, Washington, D.C. had the highest number of people Googling what misprision meant. Well, that's probably because they're a little worried that what they did probably constitutes misprision of treason. So I'd be watching out if I'm in D.C. or any of the swamp creatures who may be watching this and wondering what your fate will be. If you helped cover up for these traitors, these treasonous people committing sedition and treason against this country, then yes, you are guilty of misprision of treason, and you will be subject to the same laws and outcomes that anyone else who violate the law would be. So let's just leave it at that. Of course, don't forget, what are we up against? We talk about the bioweapon and everything, the theory about the bioweapon, I should say. Don't forget about this. Harvard University, the head of the chair of the Harvard University Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department was arrested by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Like, just think about that. For colluding with the Chinese, basically, in no other terms. Now, this, to me, is indicative of what we're going to be going up against. And as President Trump calls it out, you don't see that in the mainstream media. I don't turn on the TV and see anybody in the fake news talking about it. And as President Trump says here, one of the reasons that fake news has become so prevalent and far-reaching is the fact that corrupt journalists, quote unquote, base their stories on sources they make up in order to totally distort a narrative or story. When you see 5 sources say, don't believe the story, it is very often fake news. Mainstream media should be forced to reveal sources very much as they did in the long ago past. If they did that, the media would be trusted again and fake news would largely be a thing of the past. So President Trump is giving you a way out of it. If you want to represent the truth, if you want to represent the American people, if you want to tell the truth, that's fine. But prove it. Don't come to me and say 5 sources say, or else I'm going to come to you and say 6 sources say this. And that's where we're going to keep going, if that's what this is going to be. See, because I can tell you guys right now that President Trump knows exactly what's happening, and he's following this very closely. As we look at stories like this coming out, the Breitbart covered this story, but it's fascinating. This is what an actual New York Times piece was slanted toward. It said the New York Times blames evangelical Christians for the coronavirus. Yep, that's exactly what they said. The sentiment of the article and the argument by the journalist and author Catherine Stewart is that because religious voters support Trump, that means he governs without regard for science. This is fake news. These people are doing it once again. This is them trying to divide us by religion, trying to blame Christian evangelicals, which I am, and a lot of you out there watching are, they're trying to blame us for what? For something that doesn't even make sense, that President Trump doesn't regard science? Where do they come off trying to attack an entire religion? But this is exactly what Q just outlined for us. He showed us why they would do this, because they're trying to turn us against each other. And once you realize that, it becomes impossible to kind of look after. Now, also, another big issue coming out that I think is a backlash on China, but the authoritarian communists are going to do what they're going to do. You have massive protests breaking out in China's Hubei province, which is where Wuhan is, the capital of, and ground zero for the coronavirus. So the Chinese people are waking up. The information that we're getting here in America about the Wuhan lab, about the coronavirus and all that, that's slowly getting into mainland China, believe it or not. And the people, once they wake up to what their authoritarian dictatorship of a government's done to them, as in allowing them to lose their lives at such a rate, is beyond the backlash of anything, I think, because they're the ones who are going to have the biggest wake up, realization ever. And that's just something I thought was interesting, not to mention the fact that you have here in America many scientists coming out now and saying that it's very possible that there's multiple strains of this virus, but I'm not even going to go into that. I'm just going to say, look, the people of China are just as much a victim of their communist dictatorship as the rest of the world is. And if this was a movement against us, I don't know. And that's what we talked about, the 2 ships that were deployed today. Are they jails? Are they prisons for what's happening? I mean, I'm not sure. I do know that there's videos coming in like this from LA of Osprey helicopters doing low flights through the Hollywood Hills. So, I'm not sure, but usually from what I know, Ospreys are only used for quick, bringing groups of soldiers into an area and extracting. So this could possibly be the beginning of what those hospital ships are meant to do, which is both help the sick and people who are suffering, but at the same time provide a cover for activity in that area, which, I'm not going to get into because I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I think we should all keep a very close eye on everything that's happening here in LA and how it ties back to what's happening with these massive protests in China, and how the Chinese people are waking up to what we're going to end up realizing, I think, in the future about this coronavirus. So that's something to keep in mind. Not to mention, you have the Pope back in 2015. This is where we're going to go ahead and leave it, predicting his own departure from office, saying that he has the sensation, this is from 2015, that his pontificate will be brief, 4 or 5 years. Well, guess where we are? We're 5 years from 2015. So maybe he saw what was coming in the cards. Maybe they were planning to switch out the Pope, but this was on March of 2015, so almost exactly 5 years ago. This was Pope making his prediction. Plus, in the weirdest part of this article, he says, the only thing I'd like to do is be able to go out one day without anyone recognizing me and go get a pizza, he said, laughing. Yeah, we all know what pizza means, and we all are very suspicious of people who make those kind of comments, but I'll leave that for you guys. Links to everything that we talked about will be in the description. That's pretty much going to be it for this episode. That's where I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to say thank you. A few more things before we go. First of all, I want to say thank you. Come here, watch these videos. There's a content suppression algorithm, so you guys break through it by watching these videos and sharing them on your social media. That's a great way to help out the channel. And also, I want you guys to leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below, because I want to hear what you guys have to think about everything we talked about here today. Also, don't forget to go check out RedPillLiving.com/JUSTINFORMED today. They're still having that 15% off their liposomal vitamin sale. I really encourage you guys to go check out their products. The vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B12. These are all going to help, I think, bolster your immune system. So it's a good time to go stock up, especially when they have this great deal going down. So make sure you let them know I sent you by using the link in the description to go check it out. Then you can use the coupon code IMMUNE, IMMUNE, to get 15% off your liposomal vitamins. And if you want to check out their other products, like their Great Awakening coffee, which is great, or their colloidal silver, or their carbon 60, you need to use the coupon code JUSTINFORMED to get 10% off those. So go check out RedPillLiving. patreon.com/justinformed using the link in the description today. Also, you can come find me over here on Twitter at JustinFormedYou. It's a great way to connect outside the channel. And you also can find me over here at justinformednews.com. And of course, bitchute.com/justinformedtalk is the backup channel. And a couple other ways you can help out are both financial. You can come over here to Patreon, patreon.com. You guys and your support is what keeps this channel alive. Without you, it wouldn't still be going because of all the demonetization, the way YouTube's tried to, big tech has tried to put this channel out of business. And you guys have kept it going. I also have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, the Patreon is a monthly donation. So however you want to do it, I really appreciate it. Now, before we leave, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today I have a really powerful verse for everyone out there. In case you're wondering, you know, Q had told us before, he said, do not fear. And it kind of reminded me as I was doing some research of the Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10 through 13. And I want to share this talking about fear and how we should look at that. But it says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand. Be sure that all who are enraged against you will be ashamed and disgraced. Those who contend with you will become as nothing and will perish. You will look for those who contend with you, but you will find them, or you will not find them. Those who war against you will become absolutely nothing. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand and say to you, do not fear. I will help you. And that's what we should remind ourselves. That's what we should strengthen our hearts with, and know that as we go through these uncertain times, as we face these afflictions, as we face these trials of, you know, facing quarantine and facing possible sickness and facing possible bigger obstacles to come. Remember, do not fear. God is with us. God is in our hearts. If we embrace God, if we embrace the light that is put in our hearts by the sacrifice made by Jesus on the cross, if we embrace the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us, then nothing should be able to shake us, and we should stay in that unwavering faith toward God and share that with others and ease others and comfort others through these trying times. That's how we help. That's what we can do. Because you ask, you know, what can we do? That's what we can do. Put our faith in God, strengthen our faith in everything we know that is righteous and good, and God will take care of our enemies, and God will be able to deliver us because we put our faith in Him first. And that's what we need to share with our family, friends, and loved ones. So that's my message to you, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I want to say thank you guys for watching. Remember, come here, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications, then hit it, punch it, tap it, headbutt it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.